Have you ever looked at someone else's life and just suddenly felt like your own wasn't good enough? Like, imagine standing isolated in a sea of faces, constantly looking left and right, measuring your own worth against literally everyone around you. If you've ever felt that sudden, sinking feeling in your chest, when you see a friend's promotion or a stranger's perfect vacation, I want you to know you are not alone. And more importantly, you're not flawed.
What you're experiencing right there, it isn't some personal failure. It's actually a hidden mechanism. It's this ancient, deeply embedded psychological process just running quietly in the background of your mind. We often punish ourselves for feeling jealous or inadequate, kind of thinking it's a defect in our character. But the truth? Your brain is simply executing a program that was written millions of years ago.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going deep inside the human brain to uncover the psychology of why we compare ourselves to others. By the time we're done here, you'll understand exactly why your mind tortures you with these comparisons, and, more importantly, how you can finally rewrite the script.
Part 1. The evolutionary urge, a survival instinct.
Okay, to understand why we do this today, we have to rewind to our evolutionary past, a time when survival was, well, anything but guaranteed. As psychologist Dr. Kelly Watkins points out, humans are fundamentally social creatures. For millions of years, operating in groups literally meant survival. If you got separated from the tribe, you were incredibly vulnerable. So, your brain evolved a tool to keep you safe, the constant evaluation of your position within the group. When you compare yourself to others, your brain is really just trying to make sure you belong. It's a primal survival instinct, just wrapped up in modern anxieties.
Fast forward a bit to 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger proposed the social comparison theory. Festinger explained that because we don't have objective criteria, like there's no clear numerical score floating above your head telling you how well you're doing in life, we desperately need a reference point. So what do? We use other people. We are constantly collecting information to answer those burning subconscious questions like, am I doing okay? Or am I falling behind? We need this evaluation to make sense of our own beliefs, our skills, and honestly, our very identities.
Let's move to Section 2, Upward, Downward, and Lateral, the three directions of comparison.
You see, our brains don't just blindly compare us to everyone. They categorize these social evaluations into three distinct clinical directions. First up is upward comparison. This happens when we look at someone we think is doing better than us. Now, this can be incredibly inspiring, right? It makes us think, hey, if they can achieve that, so can I. But if our brain interprets it poorly, it absolutely crushes our self-esteem. On the flip side, downward comparison is when we compare ourselves to someone in a worse situation. The brain actually uses this for a quick, cheap hit of reassurance. It's that fleeting thought of, well, at least I'm not doing as badly as them. It temporarily lifts our mood, sure, but your self-esteem really shouldn't be built on someone else's misfortune.
But there is a third, really fascinating type, lateral comparison. This is when we compare ourselves to people we consider our equals. Our peers, our colleagues, people in our same exact environment. I mean, you don't compare your morning jog to an Olympic athlete, right? You compare it to your running partner. Why? Because it gives you a much more realistic, valuable measurement of your actual performance. But lateral comparison does something else too. It validates our opinions. If our peers agree with us, our brain essentially concludes that our opinion must be the absolute truth. It creates this incredibly subtle but intense psychological pressure for group uniformity.
Which brings us to Section 3, the social media illusion, the highlight reel.
So, if our brains were perfectly designed for small tribes and close peers, what happens when we drop this ancient survival mechanism into the modern digital world? Well, it completely short-circuits, because social media does not equal reality. Historically, we saw the complete lives of our peers, their successes, their failures, their super boring Tuesday mornings. But on social media, we are only seeing the highlight reel, the perfect vacation, the heavily filtered photograph, the major career milestone. The psychological danger here is profound. We're taking our complete, messy, everyday reality and comparing it to a highly curated, heavily edited fraction of someone else's life. And the crazy part is, your brain processes these images as realistic standards, even when they're entirely fabricated.
So what triggers this ancient instinct today? It's our physical appearance, career success, wealth, followers, and relationships. Literally every time you scroll, you're hit with these triggers. You achieve a goal only to immediately see someone who achieves something even bigger. You land a great job, then boom, you see someone earning way more. Personal success stops being about your own fulfillment and morphs into this competition with a finish line that is constantly moving further away from you.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. We have to understand the difference between comparison and envy. Comparison is simply an evaluation. It's noticing that a coworker got a promotion. That is just objective data. Envy, however, is the dark internal emotional reaction to that data. Envy isn't just anger, it's a deep psychological conflict. Now, envy can sometimes actually be a helpful compass. It shows you what you genuinely desire, but when it festers into resentment, hopelessness, and constant self-criticism, that's when it becomes incredibly destructive.
And that destruction follows a very predictable, terrifying loop. Let's walk through this psychological descent. Step 1. Comparison. You see the trigger. Step 2. Perceived inadequacy. You start asking, why aren't I that successful? Step 3. Negative emotions. Envy and anxiety just flood your nervous system. Step 4. Lower self-esteem. You literally begin to measure your entire human worth against other people. And what does lower self-esteem do? It makes you desperate for validation, which sends you right back to step 1. Just one simple scroll on your phone can trap you in this dark cycle of insecurity.
And that, my friends, is the ultimate comparison trap. The cold, hard truth of the world is that there will always be someone ahead of you. Someone is always going to be richer, smarter, more attractive, or more successful. If your definition of success depends on outperforming everyone else, you are playing an endless, totally unwinnable game. You can achieve massive things in your life and still feel entirely left behind simply because your brain will always find a new, higher target to compare you against.
So how do we fix it? Section 4. Escaping the trap. Rewiring the brain.
As the shadows start to lift a bit here, we can actually shift from this destructive cycle into a space of real personal growth. Look, you cannot delete an instinct that has been evolving for millions of years, but you absolutely can change how you respond to it. Comparison itself isn't inherently bad, it's all about the focus. Unhealthy comparison focuses on self-worth, asking that really damaging question, why am I not as good? Healthy comparison, on the other hand, focuses purely on growth. When you see someone successful, you ask, what can I learn from them? What can I take from their process to help me? You're basically shifting the comparison from a harsh judgment of your value into a simple, helpful feedback system.
The first practical step here is to simply become aware of the trigger. Catch your brain in the act. Notice that exact moment your chest tightens when you're scrolling, or the second you start feeling insecure right after a conversation. Awareness breaks the autopilot. Once you notice that trigger, you can consciously choose to limit your exposure to it. I'm not saying you have to avoid successful people, but you absolutely must become intensely selective about what you repeatedly expose your mind to. Next, you've got to separate inspiration from self-judgment. If someone else has an amazing career, it doesn't mean you are a failure. Someone else's success does not subtract from your potential. It's not a zero-sum game. Your identity, your entire foundation, has to be built on your own core values, not on outperforming the person next to you. Ultimately, you can only control your own effort, your own habits, and your own direction. Which leads us to the ultimate psychological tool for escaping this trap for good. Compare with your past self. Imagine looking into a mirror and seeing your past self standing right behind you. That is your only true metric. Instead of asking, am I better than them? Ask yourself, am I better than I was 6 months ago? When your past self becomes your sole reference point, actual progress becomes visible. You completely change the game from a bitter competition with the entire world into a focused, really rewarding journey of personal growth. I want to leave you with this final powerful thought. Let this really sink in. You don't need to be better than everyone else. You only need to become better than the person you were yesterday. Look, your brain is always going to compare. That's just what human brains do. But you have the power to choose what that comparison actually means. It's time to let go of the highlight reels, step out of the shadows, and start focusing on your own path forward.
Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. But before you go, ask yourself this. If you stripped away the highlight reels, the followers, and the endless comparisons, whose life are you actually trying to live? If this journey into the hidden mechanisms of our psychology resonated with you today, please like, subscribe, and share for more from The Hidden Mind. We have so many more mysteries of the human brain to uncover together. Catch you next time.